Hello, you wonderful listeners and readers of Big Blue View. A freshly shaven Nick Filato here with a messy man bun to break down one of the more interesting prospects in the 2022 NFL Draft, and that is, of course, Michigan edge David Ojabo. Now, Ojabo has only been playing football for about 5 years, so he's a little raw with the nuances of playing the position, specifically when it comes to defending the run, but he is very interesting because he has burst, explosiveness, excellent body control, and he can bend the edge and corner through contact. And those are all things we're about to break down right now. Let's get to it. Here we see some of David Ojabo's 2021 stats. Now, his 2020 stats aren't all that impressive because he didn't play all that often. Remember, Michigan had Kwity Paye, who went in the first round to the Indianapolis Colts, and they also had Aiden Hutchinson, who ended up getting hurt a little bit later in that year with a right leg injury. So Ojabo wasn't a mainstay on the defense, and one could argue he wasn't even a full-time player here because Michigan kind of took him off the field during certain running situations down the stretch of the season. But nevertheless, he still has brilliant burst and bend, excellent body control, and then surprising pass rushing repertoire. And what I mean by that is you wouldn't expect somebody who has only played 5 years to have the technique and the amount of pass rushing moves that he possesses. He also kind of has a bit of a high stance sometimes, specifically pre-snap, and his anchor versus the run and his technique versus the run are both things that are a little bit concerning, more so because he's being talked about as a first-round pick, a top 15 selection, and I can understand why, and you will also see why from some of these highlights. And this video does highlight the upside of David Ojabo, number 55, right here on the edge. Not as many lowlights, but there are some at the end of the video. Now, he aligns just outside of this tight end who releases up on a route and does not chip, which is a mistake. That puts a lot of pressure on number 65, who has to cut off Ojabo's angle and ensure that Ojabo does not kill Graham Mertz back here. Let's watch what happens. Essentially, that tackle doesn't even make contact. And I love the subtle little move that he throws right here. He kind of puts a lot of weight on this inside foot. It kind of freezes 65 here before squaring his body up the pass rushing arc and then dipping that inside shoulder around this tackle. Now look at the bend. You want a player who has an angular build. You want somebody who can bend through contact. Now there's not a lot of contact here, but you want someone who can bend at the hips, at the knees, and at the ankles. And Ojabo can do all three of those things. And his explosiveness, first 3 steps up the arc, and his ability to get his hips angled at the quarterback are all very impressive traits that are going to intrigue so many NFL teams. And then he finishes the sack too, which is something you want to see. I'm going to see it here again. Same team gets the strip sack here. Now with this play, it's a little bit different. There's no tight end first off, but you have him out here in a wide 9. So 65 already knows, because this play happened after this last one, that he's got some speed. So Ojabo, again, kind of steps inside. Not a hard inside jab step, but watch how that foot's pointing in this direction, and then he explodes up the pass rushing arc. He does so. Tackle makes contact. So then Ojabo goes right to the rip move. And a rip move is you want to dip your center of gravity, get that arm hooked right in there underneath the outside shoulder of the tackle, and then lift your weight up to raise the center of gravity and balance of said tackle, and then turn the corner. Ojabo does all those things, and then he's able to get that inside hand on Graham Mertz and force the fumble. Now we got a game against Michigan State. It's a similar type of move here. He gets the strip sack. Remember, he had 5 forced fumbles. This one, he engages with power, though. Now, Ojabo isn't overly powerful, but he's able to get both of his hands square up. His hat is lower than this tackle. Gets both hands inside, drives him back, and then he brings that inside shoulder to the outside shoulder to employ the rip move that we just went over. He's able to get into the half-man relationship. I say this a lot in some of my articles and on some of the podcasts that I do. You want to establish a half-man relationship if you're an edge rusher or any kind of defensive lineman, because it's easier for a pass rusher to attack a half-man than a full man, because a full man is a lot stronger than a half-man. So he's fully contacted, gets to the half-man relationship, and then we'll look at 79. What kind of position is 79 in to really stop Ojabo at this point when his inside shoulder is through the outside armpit? There's really nothing he can do. He's all off balance. He's lunging at the hip. Feet are wide. His hips are oriented this way. His body is oriented this way. There's just really nothing this guy can do. He's just really scrambling right now to have any kind of effect on David Ojabo. And Ojabo just leans through that contact, bends, uses that lower body flexion we went over before, turns a corner, gets the strip sack. These next two speed rushes are very similar, so I'm just going to run it and then you guys can enjoy. These were both phenomenal pass rushes, very similar, only the path to the tackle was a little bit different. On this one, it was much tighter. It was a more narrow type of path, and he has this tight end here. Again, tight end releases, which isn't necessarily something that is probably excellent for the offense against number 79, who's a different tackle than the next play that you guys just witnessed. But watch how he uses that inside jab. He takes a tight angle, jabs inside, leans with the head, leans with the shoulders, and then this tackle freezes. And that's all you need. It's just a little bit of hesitation, and with the athletic ability and the overall body control and movement skills, change of direction and agility of David Ojabo, you can win up the pass rushing arc against these Big Ten tackles. Now, can you do that in the NFL? He's going to be able to a certain extent. Probably won't be as consistent as it was in the Big Ten. But watch how he hits that inside jab and then he uses that inside arm to make contact with that outside shoulder to try and get around. And now he makes contact to contact here. He gets basically the tackle's chest plate on his inside shoulder, and then he employs that rip move. You can see the arm kind of coming up right there, dips his hips, and then just goes right through the contact. And the tackle can't do anything except for attempt to hold at that point. And you can see the similar thing on the next play, only it's a bit of a wider angle. Now watch. The angle's wider here. It's like he's going up and trying to use speed initially, and then he hits that inside jab, boom, and look at that head fake. Look at the shoulders. Look at where the hips are starting to go. And you could see what that inside foot, that inside jab foot really does to the offensive lineman he's going up against. Now this offensive lineman is not going to set as deep as he initially was because he's afraid that Ojabo is going to go inside. And you'll see a little bit later on why so many offensive tackles are afraid of Ojabo's inside moves. But that really holds the tackle in place, and that puts Ojabo into a much more advantageous situation, as does the presence of Aiden Hutchinson, which is a total another conversation that should be had because he was frequently getting slide protection to his side and getting double teamed, isolating Ojabo in one-on-one matchups. Tackle freezes for a second. It's a different tackle this time, different number, and then he just goes right with speed. Look at this tilt at the point of contact right here. That's impressive right there, man. He is able to bend through this contact, and look at the position the tackle is in. He's not in ideal position, partly because of that jab step that Ojabo threw a little bit earlier. He's lunging right here. He's not exactly in the best situation to protect the pocket. Drives right through that outside shoulder and gets the sack. And again, look at what he does with the inside arm. He goes to chop there, just in case this tackle goes for a double punch or a single punch or whatever. Goes to the chop, there's nothing there, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't deter him. He just continues with his pass rush, quickly gets to the top of the pass rushing arc and gets his hips oriented in on the quarterback to get that sack. An impressive speed rush by David Ojabo. Now we'll see the chop rip move actually land success. Last time he went with the chop, did not get the punch. Now he anticipates it well against Northwestern. Watch. Chop, rip, get those hips oriented into the pocket. Interception for Michigan. Let's watch that one more time. Just his ability to string these pass rush moves together. I alluded to this before, actually stated it before, and it's impressive. Guy who's only been playing football for 5 years. Good aiming point right there on the wrist right there. He's going to chop that down, and he's going to kind of pull down. You can kind of see it here, how he uses the arm of this tackle to help dip himself low and then shoot that inside arm right up into the armpit. And then how he corners and gets his hips completely flipped into the pocket through the contact is what's most impressive to me. Watch it one more time. Placement, timing, second move, get the hips oriented. Force the interception. This is the move that Azeez Ojulari had so much success with in college at Georgia. Now, I would contend that Ojabo is more explosive, has a little bit more bend than Ojulari. Ojulari is a little bit more physical. That'd probably be my assessment of the film that I've seen from Ojabo so far. But this is the same move. Chop, rip, get to the edge, try to corner. And I just think Ojabo's ability to really bend through that contact and win with that burst and bend is a little bit more advanced than Ojulari's. Good job by David Ojabo. Now we're going to see something similar here. These are two pass rushing moves, only this one's going to be a bull rush to rip. So we saw that a little bit earlier as well. A little bit of a power element here. Attacks with the bull rush, sees that he already has a slight edge to the half man. This tackle did not get enough depth to really cut off the angle. So Ojabo gets that inside arm right underneath, gets to the rip move, gets the strip sack. Recovered by the quarterback, but still, you can see, celebrate, man. Celebrate David Ojabo because you deserve it, bro. Boom, boom, strip sack. Just the body control and the movement of this individual, man. Let's see here. He's right there. This is a much more power-oriented rush from him. He goes with the straight bull rush against this Northwestern tackle, who he just got the best of a little bit ago. Goes right into him. His hat is lower. You love that. See how he's not just attacking upright. He leans into it, explodes through those hips, eyes on the quarterback, gets both his hands inside the breastplate, keeps his legs churning, and then works his way to that outside shoulder to help crash the pocket with Aiden Hutchinson, who's an absolute stud on this side, who just kind of does the same thing, only he employs a little bit of a rip move to get the sack. Now here we see the processing mid-rep from David Ojabo. It really shows his ability to adapt and his reactive quickness because he tries to win with speed around the edge, something he has a lot of success doing, but then he can't, so he converts it to power to pressure number 14 and force an incompletion. Let's watch. Doesn't work, double punch gets there, backs the tackle into the quarterback, right into the pocket, incomplete pass. Now let's go over that one more time. So he's trying to win up the edge, right? It's a double punch. Now, 53 right here, he sets at a pretty good angle to cut off any kind of speed rush. Ojabo realizes he can't win there. He can't get his hips oriented into the pocket and crash the pocket with this tackle who made a good initial punch with both of his arms. Threw Ojabo's speed rush off. But even still, after contact was initiated by this tackle, you could see how this tackle's hips are turned this way and his feet are in no position to really make any kind of athletic move. Ojabo realizes that, and then he uses a long arm to kind of press this tackle backwards. So he converts it to power. And that's smart right there, man, especially for someone this new to the game. Drives him right back, keeps his legs turning, forces this incompletion. Love to see it. Now this play, remember when I said earlier how tackles had to be weary of Ojabo's ability to shoot inside and go inside and employ inside pass rushing moves? Well, you'll see why. Here we go. Boom. Inside spin. Gets the sack. And this is something that Ojabo, not everyone can do this, man. Not everyone's Dwight Freeney. To be able to have the footwork and the overall balance to pull a move like this off. First off, one of the best parts of this move is you have to sell an upward pass rush, man. You can't show any sort of inside lean or this tackle is going to protect that B gap. But watch. Ojabo explodes like he's going up. Watch where his hips are oriented, his head, his shoulders. They're all like they're going up to that outside shoulder, something we've seen several times throughout this video. But then he plants on that outside foot, uses his hands to make contact and also spring off of this tackle, and then spin, and then use that outside aim to kind of club that tackle back down to slow down his ability to recover. Gets the sack. Now, Ojabo employed this several times. You'll see it here. Sell it up, go inside now. Obviously, he doesn't get the sack here. Still, look at that technique. Watch what he's doing with his arms there. Watch what he does with his inside arm once he spins. He's going to chop the punch down, right? Now, he punches high. It's a good play by this Michigan State tackle in the sense that he avoided the downward swat from Ojabo, but now look, his center of gravity is high and his feet are stuck in the mud, which also allows Ojabo to just spin right inside. And he's going to use that other arm to kind of bat the back right there. Like I said, not going to allow a recovery here. Throw happens, though. Doesn't get a pressure on this play. Incomplete. And we see it again against Michigan State. This one, he flushes the pocket. See? He's going to use that inside arm to swat that arm down right there. So he's making contact with his outside arm. Now, the momentum of 79 is going up the pass rushing arc. And Ojabo is going to sink his center of gravity, sink his weight, drop his weight, and then spin inside. And then you can see right there contact he's making with that outside arm, initial outside arm. Spin inside, get into the B gap, force a pressure. Nice catch by the receiver there. Now this one isn't a spin, but this is an inside pass rushing move. So he starts up the arc, and he kind of uses an inside rip. Expose off that outside foot, uses his inside arm to contact the inside arm of the tackle, and then brings that outside arm for an inside rip. And you can see how he gets the pressure there. Still, a completed pass, which is good. But this is another pass rushing move right here that David Ojabo possesses. One more time. Start up, sell up, inside. And he gets driven to the ground. I had to watch some of these games on broadcast because I'm a poor and I don't have access to the all 22 that a lot of people who cover the draft do. But we see Ojabo right here, and this is a very impressive move. He has to fight through this tight end's little chip, and then he goes up against this tackle who is really scared of his speed. Let's watch. Gets through the chip, no issue. Tackle squares up, and Ojabo just sees what the quarterback is doing. Now, this tackle set's way too wide here. It's not great, and obviously Ojabo is wide as well. But watch how Ojabo starts with speed up the arc, and then he just chops his feet, is able to slow down, come to balance, easily gets inside right here, finds a quarterback for a sack. He has his eyes on the quarterback the whole time. This guy does not panic for somebody who is quote-unquote raw. Okay, I don't need to go up the arc there because Aiden Hutchinson's forcing him up into the pocket. I'll just go right into the B gap, try to get the football. That's a good play right there. Now, this play is not a pass rushing play per se, but in the NFL and in college, there are a lot of read plays. There are a lot of zone read. There are a lot of RPOs where you read one defender who is unblocked. Well, David Ojabo is quite the athlete, and if you leave him unblocked, you're probably not going to have a good time. Watch. Unblocked. He just has exceptional short area quickness, burst, and he can easily close with, especially on a quarterback in these types of situations. And you can see here, Ojabo's right here. Now, it's just going to be a little pass to number 8 or 9 or whatever that is there. And watch how he is able to close with, fight through contact, and then explode to make that tackle's helmet ends up coming off on this play. Now, he's on the hash there, right? But he fights through the contact, and you can see how he just separates to make that play. Just kind of points to the overall athletic ability of David Ojabo. And now we're going to see some run game stuff here. And I'm not particularly a fan of David Ojabo's ability to anchor down as a run defender, his ability to take on double teams, and his overall technique. I think it's an area that he needs to work on. But on this play, it starts a little late. We'll see him against the tight end. And he's going to dominate Big Ten tight ends. Okay? That's just the way it is. And watch how he squeezes this B gap. Because you have this double team right here, right? You have this ace block from the center and the guard just blocking down right here. So Ojabo has to squeeze this B gap and not allow this guy to have an open alley. Granted, you have the alley defender coming down, and he does that well here. He squeezes down, and from the backside, you see the guy just absolutely split that double team. Horrible double team from Northwestern. I mean, that's the difference between Michigan and Northwestern. But you could see how Ojabo was able to squeeze the B gap down. But again, it's against a tight end. You could see it right here against a tight end. Now, this is Penn State, a little bit better competition. But he squeezes down, and he's able to make the play by the goal line. We saw Lorenzo Carter make several of these plays when Carter's going up against tackles a lot of the time. But it's still intriguing to see because he's using his hands well. He shoots his hands into the chest. You can see he has his eyes on the mesh point. Is the quarterback going to keep it? Is a running back going to have it? He sees the running back has it, and then he creates the separation and makes the play. You want to see that from somebody who's developing as a run defender. Now we'll see him here against the tackle, Wisconsin, a team who is known for running the football. Gets his hands inside. He's a little bit high, and you can see how he kind of gets bullied a little bit. His feet are off the ground, but he's still setting the edge here. This isn't bad by David Ojabo. Now, it doesn't look pretty. The technique might not be perfect. He's a little bit high in his stance, but it's not bad because the edge is still being set, and then he's able to still see what number 6 is doing and work back inside to make the play. So all in all, it's impressive. It may not look the prettiest, but it's still impressive. Makes the tackle. Now, here, we got Ojabo right here. And he's able to work inside again. This is against the tackle. Constrict the B gap. You have this. You have the double team be formed. It's a similar play that we saw earlier. The double team be formed. Ojabo makes contact. He sinks his butt, uses that exceptional length, and then gets his eyes on the backfield and is able to keep his chest clean enough to not allow this tackle to overpower him. Positions himself in the B gap. You have number 4 right here. He could be a B gap defender. He could be a contained defender. But Ojabo's still going to play contain here. Once he realizes that he closed the B gap, he sees the path of the running back and he comes off and he makes the play. Those are all things you want to see from David Ojabo. See him right here against Northwestern. This is him taking on a power gap concept, something he's going to see in the NFL, something you see in college as well. Power gap, it's different than zone type of concepts because you're going to pull players. Now this is a typical guard, a GH counter. You're going to pull the guard, you're going to pull the sniffer, the H back. That's why it's GH counter. All from the backside, and everybody on the play side is going to pin, pin, pin. Now, Ojabo, who is the end man on the line of scrimmage, his job is to read these linemen. When they step down to block, when they block down, it's his job to step down and replace that and to keep this rushing lane narrow. He can't stay wide here, because if he stays wide here, he's going to get kicked out by this offensive guard. And that's not going to be good for the Michigan defense. So you can see, he sees step down, and he sees this guard coming, and he does a good job here, getting physical, getting low, and squeezing, using the squeeze technique. Doesn't wrong arm. Wrong arm is when you take that outside arm and you kind of rip through the inside part of the puller and just insert yourself in the gap like, here's Johnny, to just screw up the continuity and the structure of the power gap play. And that's a good way. Wrong arm is a technique. It doesn't mean he's using the necessarily wrong arm. It's a good way to cause a pileup. So is a well-executed squeeze technique right here. And he does that. Gets low, makes contact, shows some physicality there. But a player from the backside makes the tackle. That's the safety, who's also a really good player, number 30. But that's solid by David Ojabo. Now we see David Ojabo in coverage. Now, if you select David Ojabo, you're probably not going to be dropping him into coverage all that often. He's much more effective when you have him pin his ears back. But if you want to use a creeper, some kind of sim blitz, and then drop him off the backside into coverage, he seems to have the instincts and the awareness to do such a thing. And he absolutely has the athletic ability to be effective in the short to intermediate range as well. And you can see him right here. What we're going to get is a quick little curl and then a slant behind it. And you can see how Ojabo reads the eyes of this quarterback. Watch. See, he glances over here, gets lateral, realizes that this quarterback is looking in this direction, and he has to throw in a hurry because Aiden Hutchinson is Aiden Hutchinson, if you want to check that out. And Ojabo works underneath that slant, and I love to see that, man. I really do. Because he has this guy to worry about, but he has his eyes on the quarterback. He's not all that focused on the fact that there's a quick curl, quick hitch in his zone, so he works underneath, gets his hand on the ball, almost gets an interception. Now, this is the part where we're going to go over just a couple plays that I saw and I recorded of him struggling against the run. Now, we see right here, Penn State, they're in the shotgun. You have the running back right here. The H-back is kind of behind the guard, but he's going to come over and he's going to kick out David Ojabo, who's right here, and you can see how Ojabo really struggles to handle this one, and he gets punished. Watch. Driven to the deck. Now, you don't love to see that. Now, he comes in low initially. You see that, but he just gets overpowered and out-muscled by this tight end who has a head of steam and throws him on the ground. And these are some of the reasons why Michigan did not want to play Ojabo on a lot of the running downs down the stretch of the season. He wasn't all that great at it. And we're going to see a couple other instances of that as well. Now, here's Ojabo right here, and he's an edge. He didn't face too many double teams, but watch when he does here. He has a tackle, and then he has a tight end. He sees that it's a lateral flow play, some kind of outside zone type of play. He engages the tackle. The tight end comes over the top to the scraping linebacker, and the guard just chips Ojabo. And you can see how Ojabo gets kind of kicked out there. Now, Ojabo's heading in that direction anyways, but you could see the kind of how he gets sprung off of this double team and how there's not a lot of anchoring ability and power right here. And he kind of loses track of the running back. His back gets turned to the path. Now, Ojabo, maybe he was like, you know what, I just got to get outside of this double team and clog up this area. That is a possibility, but it does kind of look like there was a little bit of panic here and a little bit of, man, I'm getting bullied. Now, luckily, the Michigan front takes care of Indiana's front, but still, you can kind of see it a little bit there. Let's go to the next play. We have Ojabo right here. It's against Wisconsin, good running team. And this is another power gap play, only this time it's not a double puller. It's just a guard coming around to the play side, the backside guard. You can see how Ojabo's just a little bit passive right here. Now, it seems like the guard's a little bit passive as well. But you see how he just kind of leans into that there? There's not the same kind of ferociousness that we saw on the last play. And if you go back to last year, and you look at Azeez Ojulari, whenever he was taking on a puller, it was punishing, man. It was exciting to watch. You don't get that same vibe from David Ojabo. Now, we saw a solid play against Northwestern before, but right here you can just see how it just passively kind of gets in there. Now, it didn't really matter because Josh Ross shoots the A-gap and makes a brilliant play right here. But you still want to see a little bit more pop there, and you just don't really see it all that often with David Ojabo in terms of his ability to stop the run. And now this one isn't a run game. This is just kind of points to his high stance. You can see pre-snap he has a high stance. He naturally has a high stance a lot of the time. Well, in this one, he rushes high, which he does sometimes. And sometimes he has success because he's naturally gifted. But here he gets snatched and trapped to the ground by this Penn State tackle. You can see how he goes in to engage him, gets his arms in there, and he's just too high. So the tackle rips that arm right down to the ground. It's an easy snatch and trap situation for this tackle. It's not something that you see too much on film, the snatch and trap for David Ojabo, but I have seen him be a little high. And when you're high and your center of gravity is high, you're going to lose balance, which is something that he typically possesses. And that's our quick video on David Ojabo. I hope you all enjoyed. And look, there is a lot to like about David Ojabo, and I'm sure the NFL is going to fall in love with him because he has that burst and that bend that everybody is searching for. But he's not a perfect prospect. He's not overly polished in terms of what he can do against the run. Now, his ability against the pass, his technique, how he uses his hands, his array of pass rushing moves combined with his unique athletic ability is wildly impressive considering that he only has 5 years of experience, but he has to get better against the run. It's no coincidence that he only played 4 run snaps against Georgia in their final game. That's not a coincidence, okay? Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator of Michigan, realized that he was a liability against Georgia's power rushing attack. He's going to see that in the NFL as well. So this is a potential top 15 pick, but it's not a perfect prospect. I personally really like David Ojabo, and I hope that he has a lot of success in the NFL. Anyways, I'm Nick Filato. This is Big Blue View. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please head on over to Big Blue View if you want the best Giants content out there. Everybody take care of yourselves and have a lovely one.